In this video, we will be doing the second page of Lesson 15 problem set. And our learning objective is we can solve word problems to find the perimeter of shapes with given side lengths. So we've been working on the skill of perimeter, and now we are putting it to use in word problems. In other words, in real life situations. So let's get started. Number 4, Marian paints a 5-pointed star on her bedroom wall. Each side of the star is 18 inches long. What is the perimeter of the star? Well, so let's start by underlining our knowns. One thing we know is it's a 5-pointed star. And another thing we know is each side of the star is 18 inches long. What is our unknown? Well, our unknown is what is the perimeter of the star. Now, the nice thing about this problem is, sure, we had to read the problem and underline our knowns, but they already have the picture drawn for us right here, this 5-pointed star. I know I have a difficult time drawing stars like that. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to label those side lengths, okay? And I got to make my font really small, and I suggest you write small to label yours as well. And as I label them, I'm going to count how many sides I actually have. So here's my first one, and it is the 18 inches. I hope you can see that, boys and girls. And then there's another one here, 18 inches. It's 2 so far. There's another one, like I said, write small, because if you don't, you might get confused about how many sides you have. Another 18 inches. I'm doing this side right now here. That's another 18 inches. Here's another side right here. Oh my goodness, a lot of sides to this star. Another one right here, 18 inches. Another one here. I've got this 2 left, 18 inches. And this one here, 18 inches. Okay. So count those lengths. How many sides does this star have? Well, let's count how many times we wrote 18. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We wrote 10 times. And boys and girls, I always try to start at the same point, the top of a shape, and count clockwise to get the number of sides. So it's a good habit to get in to always starting in the same spot. All right. So we're going to go ahead now and write our number sentence for this. And I want you to think about it. We will, whoops, do not want that. We will start with, oh man, look what I did. All right, forgive me, boys and girls. I got to go back and I've got to relabel those. I had my cursor in the wrong spot. So that's okay, because maybe you're a little behind too. All right, so we have our 10 sides, and now we're going to come over here and we are going to write our number sentence. Okay, and we want to start with capital P equals. If it's a number sentence, then you have your equal sign. P stands for perimeter. And there are 10 sides to this star, so I could certainly write 18 inches plus 18 inches plus 18 inches 10 times. But boy, that would take forever. This is a perfect example of trying to use multiplication to help you solve a perimeter problem. So I have how many sides to this star? That's correct, 10 sides. So actually it's called a decagon. So we didn't really learn that when we were doing geometry, but a 10-sided shape is called a decagon. Dec means 10. So I have 10 sides, so I'm going to use 10, and then I'm going to multiply that by the length of each side, and each side is 18 inches. And now I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, oh man, do I know how to do this? Well, sure you do. It's probably one of the first strategies you learned when you learned multiplication. We learned when you multiply by 10, you just add 0. So if we have 18 times 10, that would be 18, and add a 0, and we have 180 inches. So what is the perimeter of the star? Let's go ahead and write our TS. The perimeter of the star is. Okay, so that wasn't so hard. I'd like to know from you, if you were in school, I would ask you, what was the hardest part of that for you? I know if I think back, probably the hardest part for me would be to make sure I labeled all those sides. And I had to label it small and to just keep track of how many sides I had there. Another thing you could have done when you were labeling the sides is you could have put like a little starting spot right here with your pencil and then said, okay, I'm going to count after that. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's always a good strategy to use some kind of a mark to show where you've started, especially when you have a shape with a lot of sides. And Mrs. Reed loves to see even little dots or slashes on a paper that show how a student is thinking. So probably should have done that at the beginning just to show you that that is a good strategy as well. All right, our last word problem, let's move on. Number 5. The soccer team jogs around the outside of the soccer field twice to warm up. Really important thing. They jog around that soccer field twice. And I know we have a lot of soccer players in our classroom. I know Alex plays soccer and his sister plays soccer. So we know soccer field is kind of like a football field and it is a big rectangle. But it tells us that right here. The rectangular field measures 60 yards by 100 yards. And we have to figure out what is the total number of yards the team jogs. So notice it's not really asking us for the perimeter of anything. It's asking us to find the total number of yards the team jogs. But if the team is jogging around the field, they are jogging the perimeter of the field or the distance around the field. The most important thing we need to remember here is they are doing it twice. So that's really important for us to remember. All right. So we underlined our knowns by reading, or we read our word problem, underlined our knowns, and now we're going to draw our picture. We know it's a rectangular field. It says it right there. So I'm going to draw a rectangle here. And one side is 60 and one side is 100 yards. So when I label it, I want to make sure that I do the 60 yard on the short side. So I'm going to label this 60 yards and the 100 on the longer side. And remember, opposite sides, they only give you 2 measurements, but opposite sides on a rectangle are equal. This is a really good fact to remember when you're doing perimeter. We also learned it when we did area. All right, now we need our number sentence, and we remember we're going to start with P equals. So this is just a good habit to get into when you're finding perimeter using the letter P and an equal sign. Just like when we did area, we used a capital A and an equal sign. All right, so let's first of all find the perimeter of this soccer field. So I could find the perimeter by adding. So if I start right here with my 100 yards, 100 yards plus 60 yards plus 100 yards plus 60 yards. And then I'd have to find that total. So again, you guys can do it however you want. You can group those numbers thanks to the associative property however you want. You can move them around based by using the commutative property. So I'm going to just do this. I'm going to put the 100 and the 60 together, use my parentheses. That's the associative property. So associative property means you're showing your thinking. You're showing Mrs. Reed that's how you decided to group your numbers. If I had 160, I'm going to get 160 yards. And then my second parentheses has the same thing. So now I've got 160 plus 160, and I can show my work with an algorithm if I need to. Remember, algorithm, you're adding the numbers vertically, different than your number sentence. And sometimes we need that to add our ones and our tens and our hundreds. And if we use the algorithm, we would get 320. So our answer here is 320 yards. Okay, now a lot of you say, oh, that's how far they ran. And remember, they make each problem a little bit more difficult, and they want you to think a little bit more, growth mindset. They want to really push your thought process and your problem solving skills. They didn't just run around the soccer field once, they ran around it, remember, twice. So they did 100 plus 60 plus 100 plus 60, which is 320. Then they did that again, 100 plus 60 plus 100 plus 60. They did that twice. So I could now add 320 plus 320. So you could write that same number sentence out again if you want, like we did before. But I'm just going to add 320 plus 320 because it's the same number twice. I could also write 2 times 320. Okay, and if I add 320 plus 320, maybe you can do that mentally. If not, again, do it over on the side of your page with an algorithm. So 320 plus 320 is 640. 640 yards. So the answer to the question, what is the total number of yards the team jogs? We need to write our target sentence. So we can say the total number, or the total, number of yards team jogs is, and our answer was 640 yards. All right, boys and girls, there's 2 more word problems where you would use the real life skill of perimeter. And thank you for joining me, and I hope you found that helpful.